Rimuru reincarnated into another world by Kischur. What to do? Rimuru Pav. Ah. So bright. Ah. With me using magic to prevent the sunlight from hitting my face, I was able to sit up from my comfortable bed, and I was going to stand up, but was stopped when I felt someone was holding me back. Because of that, I looked down and saw the two goddesses were still sleeping. Rimuru. I thought, they promised to return back in heaven, when we were done. I thought, while thinking back at the intense battle that I participated in with the two goddesses in my bedroom. Thinking back at it now, I have done many things while I was in this new territory of mine. When I asked Dad to give me this territory, I mainly did it out of nostalgia of being a ruler again and to spite the Estage kingdom for their failed attempt of making their breeding tool. Oh yeah, Dad and everyone else doesn't know that, and even the kidnappers doesn't know that, since the Estage royal family didn't even inform them of what they would do to me, but I was able to figure it out, when I went to the Estage king and mind read him. But ignoring the pig king. When I arrived in this city, in fact back then it shouldn't even be a city, since it appears called to look more of a medium-sized town, and with the town's people's eyes looking dead despite being alive. Which does make sense, because of how the kingdom is run. Because of Amara's blessings to the first king of Estage, the kingdom developed a society of beautiful and handsome people to the ruling class and has rights, while the ugly doesn't even have rights as a human being and straight up go to slavery. And because of the Estage royal family's dislike for ugly beings, they throw away the ugly to the furthest reaches of their territory, which is also the less fertile lands of their territory, and for the beautiful and handsome gets closer to the capital, while also simultaneously having more fertile lands. Because of that, to the kingdom of Estage, beauty and looks are everything, even if the ugly are smarter than the beauty, the kingdom wouldn't acknowledge it, and merely ignore it. And the whole reason why the royal family was able to fully govern the whole kingdom effectively and without the kingdom suffering from rebellion, was simple because of charm magic. Charm magic allows the user to pretty much charm most beings in the world, and unlike the rest of the magic, where the strength of the magic corresponds to the quality and quantity of the mana and the user's skills in said magic, but charm magic doesn't work like that, since the strength of said magic corresponds to the user's physical and spiritual appearance. Because of this, the Estage royal family are natural on using charm magic because of the blessings of Amara, who by now is sleeping with me every so often. Because of that, if the user's physical and spiritual appearance is beautiful, the stronger the magic, but because of the nature of said magic, most beings only use their physical appearance to charm most beings, making the spiritual aspect to be weak, since most people that has a beautiful spiritual appearance are far too good-hearted to hypnotize someone. Because of the nature of said magic, the magic is banned in most nations, since the magic is far too dangerous and that there's only a few ways to cancel the effects of said magic. 1. The user dies, to remove the effects of said magic. 2. The person who is affected by charm magic can be bathed in an anti-magic spells or waters. 3. The person who is affected by charm magic must look at the person they are in love with, to cancel the spell. 4. The person who is affected by charm magic if they saw someone more beautiful handsome than the charm magic user, in both physical and spiritual appearance, the spell would wear off. 5. A person wouldn't be affected, if the person doesn't care about beauty. And the last one would be, a person wouldn't be affected by the charm, if they just don't care about the charm magic user. Those 6 things are the only ways to actually destroy the spell. Of course because of this, and with how the king of Estage works, I was sure that he was planning on using the charm magic to attack me and my entourage, but because of my own beauty surpassed the royal family of Estage. With my new citizens being freed of charm magic, I pretty much single-handedly fixed everything here, since I used a ton of magic to just fix the lands and to pretty much upgrade the fertility of my territory, to the point that it can even rivals the kingdom of Theberg, which is blessed by the great god of earth and farming. Because of that and with me effectively ruling the whole places, I was able to make the whole territory profitable. Of course by that point in time, I was only focusing in the capital city, which I renamed into Azure. While leaving the other towns and village to their own, since in order for me to help them, I needed funds to do it, and after governing for about 3 months, I was able to gain enough funds to help the other towns and villages. Of course most of the funds are taken from bandits, which I mint-controlled for easy troops and the revenues of the trade that I have been doing. With that I was able to renovate the whole territory which lasted for a few months. But while that was happening, I also created more and more industry to gain more funds. Of course Papa also sent me much needed funds, but to be truly independent, I created a new identity for myself and made a company in the heart of the Estage Kingdom, their capital. Because of my looks, intelligence and my experience with guard, I was able to make a name for myself and gained much needed funds. I was able to do this, by mind controlling and charming pretty much everyone in the lower business rankings, and absorbing their businesses, and with that I just went from there and reached the #1 spots. Like you don't even want to know how much I gained thanks to the nobles spending crazy amounts of money, and with that I stealthily and sneakily send some gold coins to my territory. And mind you, no one would noticed about 1,000 gold coins going to my territory, if the company always gets about 5 to 7,000 gold coins per month. So no one noticed, especially since, I was asking the Shadow Corps to help me in this one, which they did carried out, simple because they also hated the kingdom. While me renovating and increasing the revenues of my territories in such a small amount of time, the nobles of the kingdom of Estage was planning on actually trying to kill me and usurp my territory. Which didn't happen, since I reverse it. While Rimuru sleeping in her bed, in the ceiling there was multiple individuals wearing dark clothing, with most of them having knives and even some having crossbows. Ready. One of them said to each other, making the other nod, and with that the one with the crossbows redid themselves and then aimed at their target. Let's go. With that, 5 of them thrown their knives, 10 of them jumped down to personally stabbed Rimuru and 4 of them fired their crossbows. But before anything happens, the darkness of the bed expanded and then spikes rose up and killed everyone except for the one who spoke, for he was being held up by the darkness. Then the darkness went behind Rimuru's back and then pushed her up, to make her stand, while she was slowly opening her eyes. Rimuru. I finally got it right. With this, anyone who has bad intentions against me, would automatically be attacked by the All Black. Rimuru thought happily, and when she finally looked at the potential assassin, Rimuru lowered the assassin to meet her to eye level. Rimuru, okay, tell me who sent you to kill me. To this, the assassin just struggled in the hold of the All Black, and after a minute of struggling, he harshly looked at Rimuru. Like hell I would submit to a child. The assassin shouted at Rimuru, who only looked at him waiting to answer her question, you aren't safe. We were able to sneak into your room, without much difficulty. And there's better assassins than us here. So you're already dead. Even with your stats, it's only numbers if you don't even know how to fight. And when the king marched his armies, you will only become a sex slaves. And, while he was rumbling on, Rimuru was just thinking of something. Rimuru, the only reason why you all even managed to get here, is simple because of me ordering the Shadow Corps to let it happen. Besides I think, you would be killed by the Shadow Corps soon if you don't quiet down. While thinking, the assassin was now just blackmailing or just threatening Rimuru at this point. Here's the deal, to save you from your fate, let me be your sex slave, and I would take whole care of you, while saying to the king that you're dead. How does that sound? Sounds good isn't it? So released me, and let's get started, he said, and seeing that he has nothing to say, Rimuru just placed her right hand on top of the assassin's head and mindread him and saw it was the king of Estage that did the request. Rimuru. Now I can threaten the king, without being in the wrong. With this, I would be compensated again, maybe I should let this happen, to gain more territory. Gaining the information that she wanted. Rimuru then thrown the assassin to the ground, and seeing this, the assassin smirked lustfully and was about to go to Rimuru, until he was forced to the ground by the Shadow Corps. Hey! This isn't in the deal. Hearing the assassin's words, Rimuru looked confused at the assassin and said. Rimuru. I never accepted your deal. And being an assassin with the job of killing me, you would be given punishment according to my will. Hearing this, the assassin looked at Rimuru like she was crazy. Hey! What you're doing is madness. You and your measly territory wouldn't survive the armies of Estage. To this the Shadow Corps member chuckled, with Rimuru doing the same thing, making the assassin look confused. Rimuru. On the contrary, my territory can defeat the whole kingdom, because they have old me. And besides, with the king of Estage personality, I could just go there and threaten him, to stop his armies, and with his personality, it can easily happen. With that the Shadow Corps member knocked down the assassin. What shall be the fate of this scoundrel, your highness? Hearing this, Rimuru giggled at the Shadow Corps member's attitude to her. Rimuru. You don't need to be so formal, Alpha, but as for his fate, strip him and toss him to the pigs. Alpha hearing this was confused. Alpha. The pigs. Your highness, why there? He can easily escape from such place. To this, Rimuru stepped down from her bed and then patted the kneeling position of Alpha, making her enjoy the head pats. Rimuru. He is lustful, let him be packed by the pigs. With that, Rimuru disappeared from the room, leaving a stunned elf. In the gorgeous capital of the Estage Kingdom, sat an equally if not even more beautiful castle, and in the skies of such a capital, was shown to be Rimuru herself, with her standing on the darkness surrounding her surroundings, for it was the night, and in such a time, Rimuru was at her most powerful. For with the All-Black, Rimuru is able to manipulate all forms of darkness, and if there is enough darkness, the All-Black can even strengthen Rimuru, and in some strange way, the All-Black is connected to the moon, making it so, the higher the moon is, the stronger the user of the All-Black is. Rimuru. Despite the capital receiving damage to my attack months ago, they were able to recover this quickly, and I must say, I am quite impressed, even if the worked forces used are slaves. Rimuru thought, and without thinking more, Rimuru's body then transformed into darkness and then quietly slithered in the bedroom of the king. When Rimuru arrived at the bedroom, she saw there were clothes everywhere, with the king and queen naked in bed, with them fully awake, but appears would fall asleep any minute now. The king is a handsome man with blonde hair and sky blue eyes, with a fit body, but in closer inspection, he hasn't trained a day, with him only having the fit body simple because of the blessings of Amara with him. As for the queen, was again a beautiful woman with pink hair and green eyes, with an ample bosom and a near-perfect hourglass figure, with an ample ass and thick thighs. George, will we go with the eruption of the territory of Gloria? The queen asked her husband King George IV, who only scoffed and then smirked. That's right, the kingdom of Tempest is 100 kilometers away from us, so with that we would be able to conquer the territory and gain their richest, the king said in a voice full of arrogance. Is that so? But the problem would still be the kingdom of Tempest and all of their allies, and especially the gods, who liked her, like the goddess of beauty Amara, the one who also blessed the royal family. What do you think they would do? Hearing the queen's question, he again scoffs and then laughs hysterically. The kingdom of Tempest wouldn't do a thing. With charm magic we could hypnotize the whole armies of Tempest, and with how loving that foolish king is, he wouldn't do anything if we have that princess as a hostage. And for the gods wouldn't anything, for they are under my control for my beauty. Even the goddess Amara would fall for my looks and become my slave. Quote. The king who was handsome beyond compare, even for the royal family, that he can charm anyone in the kingdom, and even many other kingdoms' royal families were charmed by him, and left their kingdoms and went with him, having his way with all of those he deems beautiful. Because of his actions, many higher-ups or royals, always hides the females that held a high position for in fear of being charmed. It is to the point that even some kings ordered his death, when he saw going to their kingdom, just so that their wives and daughters wouldn't leave. His charm is to the point, that even his mother was charmed and became his sex slave. It is because of that, he has figured that nothing in this world could resist his charms. It is to the point that he even started to think that even the great goddess Amara isn't as beautiful as him, and started to see the goddess as merely a tool to satisfy his sexual urges. Rimuru. Is that so? Well, I just asked for you to stop, or else I would destroy the kingdom of Estage. When Rimuru heard about this man, she merely didn't care for the people he charmed wasn't anyone close to him, but he did see the man as far too being arrogant and self-serving, just like that of Mariabel Rosso. When the two heard of an unknown and beautiful voice, they hurriedly stood up and saw the overly cute figure of Rimuru. Why yo-yo that princess? How did you get in my room? King hurriedly asked, while secretly used charmed magic onto Rimuru, which hit making the king arrogantly smile and then properly stood up and then walked to the motionless body of Rimuru, who only silently looked at the king. Huh. Even though you were given the blessings of Sophia. You aren't even that wise. Coming to me, without any male guard. Pathetic. Ha ha ha. With this the territory of Gloria is mine. The king after finishing his declaration, looked up at the ceiling and then laughed like a madman, and after laughing for a few seconds, the king looked down on Rimuru who still looked at the king motionlessly, and then a flash of lust was shown in his eyes. Ho ho, if only you were 15 years old, maybe I could have fun with you and even make you my wife, the king said to himself, while properly having a good look at Rimuru. Rimuru, sire, are you going to answer my question? Or are you just going to continue your looking at me like that? Hearing the voice of Rimuru, the king was shocked and then immediately jumped back in both surprise and fear, at such an impossibility happening before his eyes, with the queen looking at Rimuru in fascination, with her eyes suddenly flashing and then returning back to normal. Ho how? How were you able to resist my charms? Hearing this, Rimuru merely hums and then looks at the supposed queen, who is looking at her in fascination and gratitude, while her gaze looked at the king with fear. Rimuru, I see you as someone who is incredibly ugly, especially since you were blessed by goddess Amara, for Rimuru's eyes see both the physical and spiritual appearance of a person. Sure, she was impressed with the king's physical appearance, with him being closely tied with Leon, but he still falls behind him, because Leon was far more handsome than him, and with him having such a majestic aura compared to the king. But his spiritual appearance, on the other hand, was hurriedly ugly. It is to the point that Rimuru was using magic to not puke at such horrid sight. But the main thing that truly decided the outcome of the charm is simple really. Seal. With her existence, she was able to block the charm, but even without Seal, Rimuru even be affected by the charm, simple because she is attracted to girls, and even if a beautiful girl were to use charm magic onto her, she wouldn't even react to such magic, simple because she has numerous magic resistances. The king, hearing being called ugly, was furious. He hasn't even been called such things. He was always been called the handsomest man in the world. And even the human world called him the destined lover of goddess Amara. It is also because of that, he is always awake in the night, hoping for the goddess to come down from the god realm and go to him, and sleep with him, and then charmed her, and become a god himself. And become immortal and be able to sleep with more women in the future. But now, that there was someone who was able to resist his charms, then there must be other people who could also resist his charms. Maybe there was also people who could resist in his kingdom. Who was only pretending to be charmed and then kill him in the future. Rimuru. Well anyway, stopped your armies on advancing to my territory, and if not, then I will kill you and everything you desired the most. With that, darkness then surrounded the room and then a portion of the darkness went to his neck marking him. Rimuru. There, that mark would be your downfall, if you were in any ways attempt of conquering my lands, and this mark would still active if you didn't stop a possible attack, if you know of the attack would happen. When hearing this, the king hurriedly placed his right arm on his marked neck, while looking at the unconcerned look of Rimuru. While this was happening, the queen was looking at Rimuru with a hopeful look. With Rimuru seeing the gazes, Rimuru then surrounded the girl in darkness and then teleported her back into her house, with some darkness with her, so that the stuff would know she was the one who brought her there. Without saying anything, Rimuru then left the scene, while leaving a despairing king to his own devices. Since then the queen, who is named Rosary Limit, a former prime minister, and from what I heard of and read about her, before she met King George, she was a good prime minister, being able to govern the whole kingdom effectively. It is to the point that she was starting to be the ruler of the kingdom, than the royal family itself. Since the only thing that the royal family needs to do is to sigh and accept her work, other than that, the royal family doesn't even do anything. And with that the results, were that she was actually having the kingdom's support and loyalty, and this is also despite almost everyone in the kingdom being charmed by George. But after George seek her out, she fall victim of his charmed magic, and seeing her skills at work, I decided to make her the prime minister of my territory as well, and from then on, she handled about 30 to 45% of the work. But after getting her, George did nothing, likely fearing the mark itself. But he did ask me to return Rosary though, and seeing the state of the kingdom itself, I did understood why he wanted Rosary back. Since George just sucked at ruling, in fact he doesn't even know how to rule, since he never really practiced in it, with the act of studying being looked down by him, and that the only reason why he married Rosary and made her queen was because of her skills in ruling and governing, and of course to pact her. But that isn't important, because of Rosary escaping the charm magic, the kingdom of Estage is in serious trouble, since George pretty much just used his luck to govern the kingdom. Which would be fine if he was blessed by a luck deity. But he was blessed by a deity of beauty. Because of that, most of his decisions was horrible ones and 1 out 15 chances did he gain some luck, that his decisions was a good one, but despite that, he was by all means a horrible king. Of course I rejected the request, and just decided to block the whole kingdom of Estage, since they would just be a problem for me. And that would technically be the last time that I was in contact with the kingdom of Estage, with her only hearing rumors or news of them, with the most latest being one of the nobles tried to attack my territory, with the George putting a stop to the attack. Rimuru, truly, I have quite a hectic life, I thought, while trying to get the 2 goddesses off of me, which worked, and with that, I was able to exit the room with me using magic to materialize my clothes. With that I moved once more, already knowing what I must do. Despite the clear of power and intelligence that I have displayed, many still doubted me. The only people that didn't were the elves, Tempest, the gods and the many allies that my family made with other royalties. Because of that, I must do something that would make the world acknowledge me. Rimuru, it's time to kill those pesky dragons. But who to choose? While I walked, many servants saw me and bowed to me out of respect, making me wave them off and continued on my walk. Truly, who do I kill out of the four? It really is hard to choose on who is worthy enough to be my first monster kill after all. But who of the four are worthy? I am not strong enough to kill the strongest of the four heavenly dragons. Even I could tell it's far too early for me. What to do? What to do indeed.